Reinforcements officially on the way. Welcome to NFL Power Rankings. It's presented by Energizer. Mike M and Eric at home with you. Trade deadline, it is come and gone, and there's some teams that have clearly gotten better for a stretch run, maybe to a Super Bowl. We're going to be ranking all the teams. And by the way, if you're watching, you can scan the QR code or head to NFL.com, get analysis on all 32 teams, according to Eric. I got to imagine when you're doing some of these rankings, look, we got the results from the past weekend, but at the same time, future forecasting, not a big change this week in the rankings, but I think there's going to be some big movement because of some of the deals that got orchestrated on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see if there are any kind of franchise-altering trades that were made Tuesday. Certainly, some players moving that I think can help their new clubs, and down the road, we'll see what helps the teams that traded those players away. But yeah, as we kind of get to the home stretch of the season a little bit, we'll find out what these acquisitions can do and how quickly they'll assimilate to their new teams.
Eric, well, let's jump into the rankings, some of those top teams, and really no change at the top for you. The Detroit Lions just continue to win. 7-1, their best start since 1956. At number 2, the Chiefs, another win for them, the league's only unbeaten team. The third-ranked team, the Bills, a 61-yard field goal from Tyler Bass for the divisional win. The Ravens, they beat Denver by 31. At 5, it's the Commanders, still leading the NFC East. The Vikings get back in the win column. They're ranked 6th. At 7, Saquon, the backwards hurdle. That's all you need to know, and that's all I continue to watch on social media. At number 8, it is the Green Bay Packers. But it is time for the Team of the Week, and it's presented by Truist. The Lions getting Zadarius Smith. I think that's the best place to start because we had some questions maybe about Aiden Hutchinson getting pressure on the quarterback. Hasn't really been affected since he's been down. But you get one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And Eric, I got to imagine the Lions might be able to hold on to that number 1 spot for a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, part of the reason why I love the Lions this year is that they've sort of faced all takers. They've taken on all competition, no matter where the game is. Sunday, obviously, in the rain in Lambeau. They've dealt with the Aiden Hutchinson injury. They've dealt with the Jamison Williams suspension. All these things thrown at them, no problem. They just go out and win. They can win games in totally different ways. But you bring in kind of a higher gun pass rusher like Zadarius Smith, 4th team, and I think 4 seasons now, I want to say. He's done some work for these different systems and these different clubs, and just adding one more pass rush source, I think, is a fantastic move, a great idea. He's sort of viewed as a pro's pro, a guy who I think can jump right into the Lions. I mean, so much of their success is based on culture. He's been on some winning teams like the Browns last year, the Packers before that. Love the move, love the addition, and love where this team is headed.
Yeah, and a big test for the Lions. Once again on their schedule, feels like there's a whole lot of them, but they'll hit the road against the Houston Texans, who we'll talk about in just a bit. And number 2, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They score a win on Monday Night Football. It needed overtime to get it done. I think the entire league, well, really Kansas City fans, just a sigh of relief when Patrick Mahomes goes down, needs some help going across the sideline. He's A-OK. But what do we make of what we're seeing from Kansas City, who, once again, gets tested? I give Baker Mayfield and this Bucs team a lot of credit, but it's not like they're blowing teams out.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the close game theme has worked for them to this point. Does it make you a little nervous watching them at times? Of course. But when you have Patrick Mahomes and a guy who can come back, I mean, heck, he played a whole season with a turf toe injury. So I think on some level, all of us expected him to peel himself out there, get out there, play, and win the game. And of course, that's what he did. Had to fight off a valiant effort, like you said, from Baker and the Bucs. Thought they were really great, especially on that last drive. But you've got Mahomes, and the Chiefs defense needed help, right? I mean, that last drive, I think they looked a little gassed out there in the bad weather, and Mahomes and the Chiefs drive down the field, score the touchdown, win in overtime. For them, I mean, they were like the early voters, right? They got their DeAndre Hopkins trade done early. They got Josh Uche, so their moves are already kind of in the tank a little bit. And Hopkins was a big addition last night. 2 touchdowns, several clutch catches. Still working that chemistry out a little bit. They weren't always on the same page, but boy, by the end of the season, that move could really end up paying off in a big way.
Huge. 14 receptions for Travis Kelce. That was a career high for him. Season highs across the board for D-Hop, especially with those 2 touchdowns. I got to be honest with you. I think Commanders fans are probably over me just saying, on top of the NFC East, a little bit of surprise here. This is the last time I'm going to say this. If you would have told me at this point of the season, before the trade deadline, they would be buyers, I would be like, no, probably not going to happen. But they are, and for good reason. Marshawn Lattimore gets inserted into this lineup. What's the overall effect that you think he can have for the Commanders?
Yeah, I'm with you. I would have projected if they were going to be buyers, it was going to be something like what the Chicago Bears did when they got Montez Sweat. Okay, thinking ahead of free agency, trying to get someone an expiring deal, hopefully re-signing him. But no, they went out and got Marshawn Lattimore, who's, towards the end of his career, closer to the end than the beginning, certainly, but an established, feisty, hard-nosed corner. And I think Dan Quinn obviously knows what he's getting here in terms of their biggest positional need, probably, and maybe one of the best players at that position that was actually available. So they did give up a premium, 3 draft picks, 1 coming back to the Commanders. We know how well they did in the draft last year, but I think this says, look, we see an opportunity here not only to win the division, but perhaps make some noise in the playoffs. We've got this precocious rookie quarterback who can deliver Hail Marys and beat teams consistently and fluster them with his legs and his throwing ability. So they're going for it. And I think Commanders fans, after all they've been through, and now this new regime, this new ownership change, this new head coach, new quarterback, new everything, they have to be over the moon at how this season has gone and have to love Adam Peters' aggressiveness and getting a cover guy that can really help that secondary.
Eric, we're a long ways away from talking about the NFL draft, but this is the exact reason why everyone clamors over quarterbacks, because one player on the field potentially changes the entire trajectory of your franchise, and Jayden Daniels has been able to do that. The other thing I'll throw out there, another tough test for this squad, matching up against the Steelers team, who we will discuss. They were also buyers before the trade deadline, but I want to focus our attention on the Minnesota Vikings, who sit 6th in your rankings. I think there's a big relief here. 2 consecutive losses, now officially in the rearview mirror. They get it done against the Colts. How big of a relief should this be for Minnesota?
Yeah, I think a pretty big one, right? I mean, obviously you give up a defensive touchdown that maybe some people felt like they shouldn't have, the Colts shouldn't have gotten, and really had to fight through it. Sam Darnold had a good second half after some shaky moments there. Wasn't perfect, but I think the biggest development was seeing that defense dominate again. That was something that I think they had to have as part of their winning equation. We'd seen Brian Flores' unit be a really good group all season long up until the last couple of games, and felt like they had a real bounce back effort in that game against Indy. And, the run game is going to be there to a certain degree. Darnold's going to have his moments. We know the receivers can shine. They've gotten Hawkinson back. So, even with Darisaw out, I'm not as worried about the offense. And Darnold is a wild card, sure, but I felt like that defense had to get back to that top 5, top 10 type of unit that they'd established themselves as being the first part of the season. I think they did that Sunday. We'll see if it keeps going, though.
Yeah, we'll see the Vikings on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars that just figure out ways to rack up losses. Time for Future Champions, and it is presented by FanDuel. I know we just touched on the Washington Commanders winning that division, but they're not the favorite according to FanDuel. No, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley gave us one of the best wow moments that we have seen. Dallas Cowboys will be the Eagles' next opponent. They sit in that 3rd position, and then it's the New York Giants, who also can't seem to get out of their own way. But let's focus on the 7th-ranked team in those Eagles. Look dominant at times in this game.
Yeah.
Second half, they let Jacksonville make a run here. What do you make of the type of season that the Eagles are having? Because quite honestly, this roster is good, and I think most of us would have felt like they were the favorite to win this division.
Yeah, I think going into the season, Philly, Dallas had established themselves as the most consistent contenders. Now maybe the Commanders, had this thing going that the Eagles and other teams should have seen coming. But, they've worked through some inconsistencies. Bad defense one week, good the next. I thought Sunday was pretty good, even though, they did give up make it a 22-point game and then or 22-point lead and then almost blow it. Got to work on those 2-point conversions, boys. But I'll tell you what, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, they have really been special, I think, the last 4 games. No interceptions for Hurts over that period. 12 total touchdowns, 6 of them running, 6 of them passing. That great catch by Devontae Smith. He's been so steady, even when A.J. Brown was out. So really like the direction the offense has taken. And, I don't know how much you could put on the defense for making it a close game. Obviously, there was a defensive score that helped get the Jaguars back in it a little bit. So if Barkley can keep making the impact he did, it'll continue justifying, yes, this was a great signing at the time, despite the $13+ million tag. And I think that could help them really push the Commanders for that division title.
Yeah, Slim Reaper in Smith, you made reference to it. Had it not been for the Garrett Wilson touchdown on TNF, I think Smith would have had the best touchdown in the entire week. Certainly fantastic. By the way, the Eagles, just the 5th team in NFL history to fail 3 2-point conversions, and win. They got to figure that aspect out. Meanwhile, they'll match up against the Dallas Cowboys, and their season looking not too strong. We'll touch on them a little bit later here on Power Rankings. At number 8, it's the Green Bay Packers. They drop a couple spots here. I don't know. I'm not overly concerned about that. What does raise some attention for me is Jordan Love and some of the turnovers here. We talk about him as an elite quarterback, and yet it seems like every single week there's another interception.
Yeah, obviously the injury kind of changed his season a little bit, but there are some parallels to last year. His first real time as a starting quarterback, had 10 interceptions the first half of the season, 1 in the second half prior to the playoffs. So we have seen this pattern before. The question is, are we going to get better ball security from Love? And that pick 6 was a gutter right before the half. I mean, that was a tough one. Obviously, the conditions were bad. Should never make this throw in the first place. He knows that. You know, LaFleur knows that. Everybody else does too. There are some mistakes you got to live with this guy, but he's a special playmaker. I think he's starting to get healthy again. And you're right. I mean, they played the best team in football. You know, one that has shown it can play in a lot of different conditions. If they can get that sort of ball security, ball handling, the snaps and all that, figure those things out. The Packers are a good team. They just had a bad Sunday.
And that happens, and you can't have another bad Sunday in the division on the road against the Chicago Bears this coming week. Meanwhile, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buyers at the trade deadline. We'll hit on them. Don't look now, but the Cardinals are flying high. And Eric, there is one team we don't talk nearly enough about that continues to win. That changes coming up next on NFL Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings, teams ranked 9 through 16. The Steelers, they are buyers. We will get to them in just a moment here. At number 10, the Texans, little bit of a drop, 2 spots. C.J. Stroud sacked 8 times on TNF. Falcons, winners of 5 of the last 6. The Chargers at number 12, they've won 3 out of 4. Niners on a bye, they're 13th. The 14th ranked team is also the first place team in the NFC West. That's the Arizona Cardinals. The Broncos, they got throttled by Baltimore. They dropped 4 spots to 15th. And Tampa Bay still hanging tough here. I know they lost on Monday night, but they are the 16th ranked squad. Mike Williams. And then on the defensive side, Preston Smith, now Pittsburgh bound. How dangerous does the Steelers now become the rest of the way?
Yeah, just another deep threat for Russell Wilson. I think had Justin Fields continue to be the quarterback, I don't know that they make a move like this. And maybe they do. It's not that Williams can't do other things, but he's a go up and get it kind of receiver, I think. And it wasn't quite working with the Jets. Obviously, they had hoped he would be a big target for Aaron Rodgers. Those two couldn't quite get on the same page. A few moments here and there adds to a Steelers receiver room that I think everybody pictured they would do something at the deadline. And then Preston Smith on defense, just another veteran edge guy to help kind of spell Watt and Highsmith and those guys. He can play off the ball too. So, you know, how he fits in will be interesting to see. But with Russ there, I think Williams can kind of unlock his talent a little bit more.
You know, Eric, I'm actually in love with where you have the Texans. I think they're one of the premier teams in the NFL. 10th feels right to me based off of what we saw against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. I'm actually cautiously worried about this team, considering all the pressure that CJ was under.
Absolutely. I mean, even before the season, I thought, are they quite ready for prime time? That was the big debate I had with myself. But now that we've seen the pass protection break down completely, and this wasn't the first game it happened, but Thursday night against the Jets should have been pretty eye-opening. And I hope they've spent the last several days trying to figure out ways to improve the protection. What can they do schematically? Are there any personnel changes we can make? There are not a lot of in-house candidates who are obvious. How do you get the ball out of CJ's hand a little quicker? And oh, by the way, Stephon Diggs, great underneath receiver, guy can catch short passes, take him a long way. He's out for the year. So they might get Nico Collins back. How much more can they keep asking Joe Mixon to kind of be the load bearer for this offense, I guess? And that's, I guess, comes down to a little bit of an offensive identity question when you have these pass protection breakdowns.
Yeah, and look, I know I mentioned this earlier when we discussed the lines. That's the matchup between these two teams this upcoming week. So certainly a lot on the line for both of these squads. This is not breaking news, and I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb. The Falcons are going to win the division. They've got the two matchups already in the bag with Tampa Bay. After beating that squad twice, the league continues to balloon here, and Kirk Cousins continues to ball.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Cousins has been a big part of what they've done, and continuing to kind of put their foot down against Dallas. Maybe let up a little bit late, but I thought looked pretty impressive overall. Bijan Robinson has really kind of settled in as the guy in the run game. They could have a game where one of those receivers doesn't have a big outing. Now, we'll see with Drake London. Is he banged up? Is he going to miss some time? I'm not sure about that yet, but just sort of steadily making progress throughout the season. I think, like you said, there's open road in front of them to win this NFC South division that, has really become kind of a two-horse race, and that's giving the Bucs a lot of credit too because of the sweep and also their loss on Monday night, putting them below 500. So you're right. That can they avoid blowing it? Can they just win games consistently down the stretch and get ready for the playoffs? That's the big question for this Atlanta group. Find a pass rush, get more consistent on defense as well.
Eric, the team that I teased before the break that we don't talk enough about and continues to win is the Chargers, and they sit 12th in your rankings. They move up 3 spots here. Justin Herbert hasn't thrown an interception in his last 6 starts. They had 6 sacks and 3 picks against Cleveland. This is the way, candidly, I thought that we're going to win some football games. Don't turn the ball over. Defense is taking a step up, and they're running effectively.
Amen. I mean, they haven't allowed more than 20 points all year. It's kind of wild, even with a little bit of a softer schedule. I mean, look, it includes the Chiefs, it includes the Steelers. They've faced some other good teams too, so it's not like they're facing nobodies. And Sunday was just a dismantling of a team that looked really good the week prior against the Ravens. And you're right, defensively, just the improvements they've made from one year to the next. Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh done an excellent job on that side of the ball, and on the other side, figuring out that balance, that fine line between having Justin Herbert throw, making sure they have their franchise quarterback get his looks, his touches, and also be that run-dominant team they are. They've kind of settled in nicely here. They're winning games in a very predictable but very tough to stop fashion if you don't have the right personnel. So, yeah, they're going to be a handful to deal with. And if they have to go on the road in the playoffs, I think they would embrace that challenge. They've got nothing to lose at this point, and I love the direction of this team and what they've been able to do so far.
Yeah, they get the Titans next time out, so you got to imagine probably get another victory here. Tennessee hasn't been necessarily a juggernaut this year. Time for Power Moves, and it's presented by Energizer. Eric, the team that is leading the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, they're figuring this thing out here. They're the 14th ranked team for you. Defense, season high, 6 sacks for them. James, speaking of formulas to win, I mean, Connor's been an absolute monster here. I don't know if it's going to end up where they're going to win this division, but my Lord, hat tip to Arizona.
Absolutely. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, I'll be honest, at the time of his hiring, I had my questions. But even last year, even in a 4-win season, you could see the progress. You could see the aggressiveness on offense. You could see the direction they were heading. And Sunday, it all kind of came to a head. I thought it was one of their best games we've seen from them all season. Had a couple bad, tough losses earlier in the year, but made life really tough on Caleb Williams. You lose Dennis Gardeck and pass rush the way they did, I thought was very, very impressive, even against the Bears team that's had their share of issues there. Love the backs. They're getting their playmakers the ball. Defensively, they're making strides, and they're having fun out there too.
Yeah, it feels that way. And to be fair, I don't even think we've seen Kyler Murray at the peak of his powers just yet so far this season. So there's actually another gear here. I just look at the Niners and that roster, Christian McCaffrey on the mend, and the Rams are also a team that would scare me. By the way, speaking of the Rams, another trade to get to involving LA and Baltimore. Meanwhile, the Saints, they lost to Carolina. They got a new coach. What Eric makes of what's happening in New Orleans, that's still to come on Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings, the squads ranked 17 through 24. The Bears scored a season low 9 points. That's not good. The Rams, by the way, at 18, they're trading 2-time Pro Bowler Tre'Davious White to the Ravens. So the corner going to help bolster a Baltimore defense that's had some issues this season. At 19, it's the Seahawks. 20th, the Cincinnati Bengals. At 21, we saw the Colts lose another game with Joe Flacco this time as their starter. They're the 21st ranked team. The Jets, they snapped a 5-game slide, sit at 22. No Dak for a while. You got the Cowboys at 23. The Dolphins losing a nail-biter against Buffalo, the 24th ranked team. Let's get to this Rams squad here. Needed overtime, get a win here. I still look at this team, Eric, as one of the more dangerous ones, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win the division by season's end as this team continues to get healthy, although getting rid of White is a little bit of a head-scratcher right now.
Yeah, it seemed like he kind of fallen out of the rotation. Some of the young guys like Cameron Kinchin steps up. Obviously, the 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. And it's funny too. We talk about the Lions being able to win in a lot of different ways. The Rams have in a lot in different fashions. You lose Puka Nacua, he gets kicked out of the game, throwing a punch, and they still win without him. Credit to Matthew Stafford, those other receivers. I thought Kupp had a big game. They did what they had to do to fight back in this one and get the overtime thriller against the division rival. When they could have lost this game very, very easily. So a lot of praise for Sean McVay and what he's done there and what how he's gotten his team back from the bad start.
Yeah, Jets get a victory on Thursday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers, season high, 3 touchdowns for him, and the defense had 8 sacks. That's the formula that I would have thought equaled wins throughout the course of the entire season. Are things heading in the right direction?
We'll see, right? The first half didn't go so well, right? So there's still this kind of Jekyll and Hyde nature to the Jets. And until we see it, in kind of a regular Sunday situation, Texans come in a short week on the road. Maybe that hurt them a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit hesitant on the Jets, but it starts with the defense, Mike. They have to be more consistent on that side of the ball, as well as Rodgers in the passing game humming.
Yeah, look, they're on the road against Arizona next time out. At
tough
23,
game.
It was, it's going to be a tough game. The Dallas Cowboys, they dropped 2 spots in your rankings. No Dak Prescott, hamstring injury now for the foreseeable future. Is this the last time I bring up the Cowboys on the show?
It could be. We'll see. I mean, unless they just lose in colossal fashion, but they're in a real tough spot. 3-5, like you said, no Dak, could be on the IR soon. Am I going to have to turn it over to Cooper Rush? Yeah, he won 4 games for him a couple years ago, but probably not the same situation. I know they traded for Jonathan Mingo. Felt like a bit of a strange move. Maybe has more of an effect next year, but yeah, this is going to be really tricky for them to kind of pull out of this tailspin and remain a contending club with Washington and Philly ahead of them in the division standings. Giants are playing some competitive football too. So yeah, the swimming upstream is the way I would describe it.
Look, I don't want to be that dude. If you know, you know, but there's been that little video gif on social media regarding Dak Prescott when he was on the sideline mouthing something. Admitting that the team wasn't good. That's probably the most politically correct way I can describe. I'm not necessarily a lip reader, but it was pretty obvious where he was going with it. Teams ranked 25 through 32. Oh boy. At number 25, it's the Giants. I say this every single week. Yes, I'm a Giants fan, and this is probably the only time I'm going to say this. It's not Daniel Jones' fault. Just saying. At 26, a coaching change we'll get to in just a moment. 27, it's the Browns. At 28, another loss for the Jags. The Titans get a win against the Patriots. They're 29th. That Patriots squad, by the way, all the way at number 32. I'm going out of order here, but the Panthers, give them their flowers. They got to win. Okay, here we go. They're at 30. At 31, it's the Raiders. A lot of changes. Luke Getsy, their offensive coordinator, out, and Norv Turner is now in. So let's focus in on the Saints. It's a lot of losses that continue to pile up here. What do we make of the squad who earlier this season we thought was one of the best in the NFL?
Yeah, 2-0 start, 91 points scored in those first 2. Huge win at Dallas. You just thought, wow, okay, here we go, right? This is going to be the newfangled Saints. And after a slew of close losses, the blowouts started happening. The injuries piled up. You had questions swirling around Dennis Allen. Now Dennis Rizzi taking over a really, really tough situation. I think Houdat Nation's kind of checked out a little bit. They've got to find solutions in all 3 phases. Carr coming back Sunday didn't really help them against the Panthers. Good luck, sir. There's a lot going on there.
I get it. You lose to Carolina. My Lord, though, like Spencer Rattler was their quarterback for a little bit here. You throw a rookie out into the mix here. You don't have Derek Carr out for a good stretch of the season. Once again, a little bit of a surprise because they were a team, to your point, that was just looking like an absolute juggernaut as we started off this NFL season. Hopefully they can fix it. Dude, you're the best, man. I know this is always a tough little sledding here to rank these teams, but appreciate everyone watching.